Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine. May we not quarrel. Om, peace, peace, peace. Because every time we quarrel, we're saying that we're actually separate. And then we're reinforcing our fundamental problem of separation. And so just we start off with this just to get a nice reminder that both the student and the teacher were actually both learning. It's not a one-sided conversation. A teacher is as much as learning as the student, so we're both having this engagement. And when conflicts arise, then we should just remember that it's simply fundamentally due to ignorance. And so we need to put our opinions aside just for a moment while we're in this, in the grounds of teaching, because when we come in, we put our shoes away, and then we also got to put our just for a moment our notions away about what we think we know, because the logic is, if we really knew and if what we know was really correct, if it was valid, then there will be no reason to ever seek again. You'll be fine. You'll be completely fine. Everything will be normal. There will be no reason to go to a satsang, or you'll be totally fine. So it implies that there is perhaps some erroneous notions that I'm carrying. So for that reason, the first stage is always the hardest, because our ego has a defense mechanism of preserving these notions. So that's one of the qualifiers in Vedanta, is that for this to work, all a student needs to do is just to suspend their notions about the world, and then we'll do the rest. And then whatever we say, then I'll back it up with reason and logic, and then you can relate that to your own experience. So there is no beliefs here. This is not about saying how things are and then just kind of letting you get that at your own will. No, it's my job to tell you something and then to provide an example or a metaphor, and then you can investigate it through your own experience and see that it's actually true. Okay, so let's start by addressing the primary reason why we're here. Like, what is the purpose of life? And according to the scriptures, the main reason and the primary reason that we're here for is to realize our nature. That's the highest purpose of living on earth. And it's good to start with this, because sometimes we'll go to the satsang or whatever, and then we won't know exactly why we're there. And so it's good to reiterate according to the scriptures, and to if you read the text of the sages, they will all say the same thing. The highest service, for example, Ramana Maharshi would say, the highest service or gift that you can offer to the world is self-realization. Because and you can determine this is actually true, because if you have an experience, no matter how good it is, what happens? How long does it last? Not very long, right? So we're not saying anything's wrong with experience. The problem is it doesn't last. So that's duality. For every upside, there's a downside. For every downside, there's an upside, which is also an advantage of duality if you think about it, because even if one is in pain, it's not going to last, because you know it's not going to go on forever. It's going to have a time where it's going to pass away. If I hurt my leg, then it's going to be painful. That's a downside. But in duality, there's also the upside. So similarly, whenever there's a moment of happiness or a great night out, then next morning there's a hangover. So this constant fluctuation of up and down, should one encounter enough of them to come to the conclusion that, you know, this is just as predictable as the sun rising and the sun setting. And then one's finally ready to sort of come out of samsara. That's the stage when one's, you know, qualified to listen to the self-knowledge. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's important to know why we're here. And am I supposed to be here? That's a valid question. You are supposed to be here if, this is the guidelines, if you have come to the realization that no amount of worldly pleasure, luxuries, offerings, life is actually satisfactory. No matter what happens, there's always more. There's always something, there's a better way to it. So liberation, enlightenment that is freedom from not only the world, but freedom from yourself. Now you're saying, who is this self that you're referring to? Okay, I'm just going to put this back up. Now the self that we're referring to here is the person who you think you are. You know, your driver's license character, your story, your nation, your creed, your male, female, intellect, like how much I know, how much I don't know. You want freedom from yourself, meaning the self that I think I am. That's what we want freedom from. For example, we can see this in, you know, when they, you know, someone tries to hurt themselves, they cut their wrists or they try to injure their bodies. Well, you know, psychologists will come up with all sorts of problems of why this is, and maybe they're true, maybe they're false, we don't know. But the other way to look at it is because we inherently identify with limitlessness. But when we come into this body, we go, well, I'm only so big, I'm only so strong, and my body ages and my body goes weaker. Like, this is not me. I just want to get rid of myself. This is so people superimpose that which is limitless, the self, they superimpose that onto the body. And because we inherently know that we are limitless, that means there is no limits to who you are and what you are. You are eternal. You are that which is forever. There's no beginning, there's no ending for you. Because we inherently understand that to be who we are, but then we go, well, I'm not, right? Because we think we're the body and this mind. And so we contrast this inherent knowing of limitlessness to this limited body, and we go, well, so I want to get rid of this. So that's what enlightenment means. It means freedom from you, this character who you think you are, the mind and the body. Now, I don't mean getting rid of it in a sense of it being disappearing, okay? You have not seen a single enlightened individual who has, quote, disappeared. They still remain in a body, right? You know this. Like you got all our, characters, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, they're still in their bodies. But so what's the difference between them and the one who is still ignorant? That is one who still thinks that I, when I say I, it's referring to the body and the mind, versus one that when say I, it's actually referring to existence, consciousness, self. Now, what's the difference? Well, the primary difference is the one that's saying I, the stage of ignorance, they think I am just this, once again, this limited, as we call jiva. Jiva simply means entity. Jiva simply means who you think you are now, this person sitting in the sofa. And therefore, all of the things that come with the jiva are like, time, space, identity, body, creed, nation, on and on and on. And the one who knows their nature, they also know, well, yes, there is a jiva here. Okay, there is a body here, there is a mind, there is thoughts, but I am not that. Okay, because see this line? There are two different orders of reality. One's called mithya and one's called satya. Mithya means apparent reality. Okay, what does apparent reality mean? Apparent reality means what comes and goes, what's always changing. For example, one moment you're sitting like this, next moment you're changing like this. So it's a constant, everything's changing. The world's changing, the cars, they come and go. People, they speak and then they stop speaking. So the whole world is changing. The oceans are, high tides and then they fall back into the ocean. So one moment we had this and then the next moment we had that. So everything's constantly, your body's changing, for example. 5 years ago, there was difference in features. Even the intellect was different. Even how much you knew or didn't know was different. And even 5 years from now, you will probably, the intellect is going to know probably a little bit, hopefully a lot more than it knows now. So even how ignorant or how much you know, that also is changing. And so whatever changes is called mithya. That's what apparently real means. In other words, it's almost as good as non-existence. Why? Because one moment it was like this, but the next moment it's no longer like that. So that's what we call it. It's existent. Yes, it is existent, but it's as good as non-existence. Because how can you call what is real that which changes? Considering one way, it was one form and then the next moment it was another form. So which one is it? Which is real? So that's what mithya means. So we can't really call it real. We can only call it apparently real because it was like this and the next moment it's like that. So mithya, once again, everything underneath the line, that is what changes. And that is, as we call, you probably heard the word samsara. Samsara is when one is caught up, the term goes like this, a worldly person caught up in samsara. That means one who thinks or believes that what changes is real. Yeah? So they're constantly thinking, participating in this world as if it's real. So emotions are real, and there's this whole emotional trauma, and then they, go to a psychologist, and then they go to friends, and then, the job is real, the family is real, your body is real. So one caught up in samsara simply means that one's constantly attending to those circumstances which are changing. Now, satya means truth, that which never changes. Okay? What never changes? That's the question. What is the one factor that never changes? You. Now, who is this you that I'm talking about? Okay? Is this the you, the jiva? No. Now, then who is this you that I'm referring to? The you that I'm referring to when I say you are that which never changes is the same you that knew when your body was 5 years ago, when your body was 2 years ago, when your body was a month ago, when your body was 30 minutes ago in a car driving here, when your body will be, in the future, it's the same I. It's the same, this is the same I that I'm referring to. Satya, awareness, consciousness, that is aware of all of these circumstances that have happened in the past and still knows about the circumstances happening right now, listening to me. So, for example, who is aware of this conversation now? What causes this to be known? Like, how is it that you are conscious right now and you know that there is a person, an apparent person, which is mithya, it's just the body, it's the apparent person. How do you know that there is an apparent person, let's call it a person, talking to you? What is this that knows about this situation? What is it that knows that this body is in the car driving, getting here? And what is it that knows that you were in your house, wherever you were an hour ago? Okay, you're aware of that, right? You're aware that you were in your house an hour ago. You are also now aware from here from now, you're aware that you were in a car about 20 minutes ago. And from here and now, you are still aware that you have entered the door a couple of minutes ago. So that you that is aware has not moved. The only thing that has moved are the circumstances. The car, the footsteps coming here, up the stairs, opening the door, sitting here on the sofa. So all of the apparent appearance has changed, right? You were in a car, there was an environment of the car, of other cars going by, and then now there's an environment of this room. So the outside appearance, all of this has changed. Mithya has changed. What you saw, the appearance has changed. But what has been consistent? Your awareness of these changes. Okay? You were aware there was a change of the car and other cars and the traffic. You were aware that there was appearance of climbing up the stairs, and now you're aware of the appearance of opening the door and sitting down. So the one thing that's constant is your awareness. And everything that has changed is the circumstances, including the body, the temperature, the people, the weather, the phone. Okay, everything's changed, but the one thing that hasn't changed is your awareness. Can you see that? Okay, so in other words, you never change. So let's go investigate into this a little bit deeper to show you how you actually never change. And I'm going to start a little diagram here. And we're going to demonstrate to you that despite your experiences changing, right? Your experience is always changing. How you feel from one moment to the next, that's all changing. But you never change. So let's take, we'll make a yellow line here. Now just imagine this yellow line is like an eternal. This is called eternity. This is you. And we're just going to symbolize it as a line, as a straight line. So there's no beginning or end. Now, here we have experience A. Here we have experience B. And then we have experience C. Okay, so let's say experience A was 5 years ago. Okay, so here 5 years ago. Experience B is, actually we'll put it 1 month ago. And experience C is 5 minutes ago. Now, have you noticed in your experience, how at one time you said to your friends or whoever it was, I have changed. I've gone to this course and I have changed. You know, it was a life transforming course. Maybe you went to Tony Robbins or some motivational speaker, and then you came out of this course and go, you know, I have transformed. Like I have a substantial change. Or I've read a book and I've changed in a positive way. Have you had that experience before?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just like, you know, I've improved. Something has shifted.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's call that, quote, something has shifted, experience A. Okay. And then, a month ago, let's say that, and okay, so experience A is happy because something positive has shifted. Now, let's say a month ago, something really dramatic happened, something just not nice. And so you were, let's say the body was, you know, sad, emotionally sad. And then 5 minutes ago, you were neutral. You know, not happy, not sad, just neutral. Okay, so here's the logic. If experience A has really changed you, okay, so you were happy 5 years ago in that moment. And you said, oh, you know, I've gone through the most amazing transformation of my life. So let's assume that's true. Here's a question. How can that be true when a month ago there was sadness? Because if that was really true, that means that this green experience would have contaminated you and you have not have gotten the chance to be sad. And then how can you be sad? How can you be the experience that you think you are? If you were B, if you were sad, then how can you be neutral if you're still supposed to be sad? In other words, now we're supposed to have, you know, we're supposed to have happiness, we're supposed to have sadness, and now we're supposed to be neutral also. But is that true? Are you now happy and sad and neutral, or are you just neutral? No, you're just neutral. When you're neutral, you're neutral. When you're happy, you're happy. When you're sad, you're sad. Did you ever experience sadness and unhappiness, happiness and unhappiness at the same time? Is that possible? No. When you're happy, you're happy. When you're A, you are A. When you are a B, you are B. Okay? When you are C, whatever C is, it could be neutral, it could be excited, it could be contemplative, curious. You are C. In other words, you're always that emotion that is occurring in that moment. And that means what? You are never contaminated by any of the previous experiences. You see that? Otherwise, if you were contaminated, if you were your experience, that is, if you really changed, then there is no way you can be B, because you're still supposed to be A. You see that? If you really changed, and if you were really your experience, then there is no way you can be C, because you're still supposed to be B, and you're still supposed to be A. So when you're happy, you're happy. When you're sad, you're sad. When you're curious, you're curious. You are never curious and unhappy and sad and this and that. You're always that exact emotion that you're experiencing. So what does this mean? You that I'm referring to, that is Satya, you are never contaminated by any of your experiences. You see that? So that means what? You never changed. From the beginning of this body being born till the day it dies, you never change. Your circumstances change. Your emotions change. How much you know changes. How much you don't know changes. How ignorant you are changes. How much knowledge you have changes. But it doesn't touch me. It doesn't touch you, self, existence, awareness. Okay? So there is one factor, therefore, that is always neutral, and that is uncontaminated by all experiences, and that is you, awareness, the light which shines on these circumstances and therefore makes these circumstances known for what they are. So I am that because of which all experiences are known. Okay? I am that, or you are that. There's only one I here. When I say I, I'm referring to the same eye that's looking through your eyes as the same eye that's looking through this body's eyes. So I am that because of which all experiences are known, including the experience of death one fine day, including the experience of ecstasy, including the experience of great despair, including the experience of ignorance, including the experience of knowledge, including the experience of, quote, enlightenment. None of those experiences change me. I am that because of which all experiences, including this experience, is known. How would you know about this experience unless you're there to know about it? And who is this that knows about this experience? It's the same I that I am, that you are, that everyone else is. Consciousness, existence, that which is conscious. And that which is conscious is looking through these eyes, and that which is conscious is looking through those eyes. It's the one same consciousness, that it never changes, and it's never had a beginning, it doesn't have an end. It's called existence, existence itself. That's who you are. That's what enlightenment is. Re-identifying with no longer this body, this mind, this experience of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. It goes all the way till the day you die. No longer identifying with what changes, but re-identifying with that which never changes. You, that which is aware, now listening, aware, capable of reporting this experience of being here. That's existence, consciousness. Are you conscious now? Yes, you're conscious. You're absolutely aware of this. That awareness is you. That's what liberation is. Re-identifying that as your identity and no longer that which is constantly changing, including the body being sick, the eyes being sore, the legs being tired, this body aging. That has nothing to do with you. That is all run by Ishvara. That is all Ishvara. That's all Maya. That's all samsara. That is eternal. So that is no longer what one who is, quote, liberated identifies with. They still know it's there. They still know your body's still there. They still know the experience is out there. And they still know the body gets thirsty, gets tired, it gets dull sometimes. It gets really sharp and really clear sometimes. But that has nothing to do with you. Okay, so that's what liberation means. It means the experience of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. None of it has anything to do with you. That means even how much you don't know has nothing to do with you. And even how much you know has nothing to do with you. So we, in Vedanta, we are right up front say, you're already enlightened. You are already what you're seeking. You're already eternal, ever-present. You're already free. And in Vedanta, what we do is we simply remove the ignorance that is causing you to doubt that statement. That, well, yeah, Andre, it sounds like I'm free. Great, I accept that, but it still sounds intellectual to me. So in Vedanta, our job is just to remove those doubts that's causing that statement that you are ever present, limitless, actionless. You never move. You never die. You never started. You never ended. You're always present. So Vedanta simply removes the doubts that statement is actually sort of true. So that's what ignorance is. Ignorance is a veil that makes these certain truths about who you are as not true. And that's why we end up seeking in our life. That's why we're looking for the truth. In other words, what you're really looking for is that freedom, that you are already free. You're never bound. You're never restricted by anything. It looks like you're restricted. I get it. It looks like there's a restriction, but that's only because you identify with your body. So we're just simply saying, yes, there is a body, no doubt, there is a body there, but that body is not you, and neither is your mind. That's not you. That's all Ishvara. That's all the stuff of creation, and that never ends. So when somebody says to me, well, Andre, I am trying to get out of Maya. In other words, what they're saying is, I'm trying to get out of here. Well, the truth is, you're not in it. It's in you. This whole creation, okay, this whole world, including this body and this whole room, everything in creation is actually in you. You are not in it. So this you realize when you notice that you're not this body and the mind, because only the body and the mind says, I am in creation. But when you realize that you are existence, metaphor for like a container, and creation is in you, in other words, this being creation, it's in you, you are like this room, that's a metaphor, you're like existence, it's like space, and creation, Maya, the whole universe, the whole creation is in you. And without you, this creation cannot be. So liberation simply means re-identifying from the created to the uncreated, which is existence. You were never created. So there's nothing to worry about. Even when this body passes away, there's nothing to worry about. Because you realize that I was never the body, I was never the mind. That was all stuff of the field. That was all circumstances of the food. Even your body is not yours. You're just a whole bunch of food. You're all the pizzas and all the pasta you ate. That's all you are. That's all the body is. You didn't grow your body, did you? You just put a whole bunch of food in the body, and then the body did the rest. It grew the cells, it grew the whatever it did. You didn't do any of it, if you think about it. So you're not definitely your body. Why? What other reason is there that you're not the body? Because you know about your body. Huh? The knower and the known. Your body is the known, and you're the knower. And anything that is the knower cannot be the known. In other words, your body is an object. Do you know about your body? Yes. Therefore, your body is an object. And who knows about this body? The knower, the subject. And there's only two things in existence. The subject, the knower, and the known. The entire creation is known. Do you know about this remote control? Do you know about this?
About it, or that it exists?
Not like technically. Are you aware that it's here? Okay. So, therefore, this is an object. Are you aware that this body is here? Yes. So this body is another object. In other words, this body is an object in Maya, and who knows about this object? You. And who is this you that I'm referring to, that I'm pointing to? It's the same you or I, which is existence, self-awareness, that I also am. So when Maya comes out of Brahman, Brahman, and it's, out of Maya, out of me comes Maya, out of Brahman comes a Maya. When Maya comes, what it does is it hides my identity from myself. That's why we have ignorance. That's why we're seeking, looking. That's why spirituality exists. Because it hides. When Maya comes out of me, out of you, when I say you, I'm talking about existence now. When Maya comes out of existence, it superimposes that which is eternal. We have a classic example of this, actually, the snake and the rope. And the story goes like this. One fine twilight time, a young man was thirsty, and he was coming near a village, and he spotted a well which he wanted to drink water from. And as he approached the well, he spotted, he was reaching near the bucket with a curled rope. But because the young man didn't see, it was kind of twilight, he didn't quite see in clear daylight, he thought it was a snake curling up, wanting to bite him. And so he froze, he was paralyzed. He didn't want to move because he knew that if he moves, the snake's going to strike. And so just at that moment, an old man was, old man is always representative for the wise man. In this case, the Vedanta man, his name is Mr. Vedanta, was coming by, and the young man was like, "Hey, old man, quick, grab the stick, kill the snake. And then the old man, approached get a closer look, and he just goes, "Oh, you stupid fool, that's not a snake, that's a rope." And then the young man looks a little closer, and then what happens? The snake disappears. See that? Did you ever have a time in your life when you saw something, you thought it was one thing, but then when somebody told you it's actually not what it appeared to be?
Well, in a sense, it's happening now, and the body, unlike that remote control, is sending signals of pain constantly.
Yeah.
Which is very easy to believe that they're real and therefore it's part of them.
Yeah.
But complaining about it doesn't seem to work, so the only answer, apart from drugs, which should, is to, as you say, be aware that that's the snake and there's an object.
Yes, your body's just another object. Yes.
It is hurting you, not about to hurt you actually, isn't it?
Yes.
As opposed to, it's not hurting you, it's just sending signals.
Yeah. Now it appears like it is you because it's so close to you, but just to help you out with that, just imagine that the I that I speak of, awareness, is actually, just imagine it's looking from the top down, like in this room, and now it sees 3 bodies, and it doesn't identify with any one of these bodies. It's like there's a body, there's a body, there's a body, but that I is the same I that I am, that you are, that our friend is. So does it even care where the pain is, in which body it is?
Well,
considering it has no connection to any of these bodies, it's just objectively looking at this room. So as soon as you identify, consciousness is in everything, but as soon as consciousness identifies with a particular body, it says, "I am in pain." So it superimposes the pain, like the snake is superimposed over the rope, and then it calls it my pain. So the practice is just to remind yourself, we call this standing in awareness, that yes, there is pain. Obviously, we're acknowledging it, we're not ignoring it, but that pain is of this body, that pain is of this mind, which I am not. I am that which is aware of this pain. So yes, I know it's real, I know it surely feels real, but hey, you're still going to have a body, you're still going to have sore tooth, sore this or that. It's just that you got to keep reminding yourself, yes, it's true, it feels like, there's pain, and that's not going to go away. I mean, Ramana had cancer, and he was in excruciating pain. But, but actually when he went to the doctor, and the doctor was putting some bandage on his arm, he just looked at the arm and said, "Mud on mud." In other words, he looks at both the body as an object and this plaster as another object, so it's mud on mud. In other words, he knows, yes, there is pain, but I am not that pain. I notice the pain, I'm aware of the pain, but I am not that pain. So that's called nididhyasana, actually putting this into real life, day-to-day practice. It's called taking a stand in awareness, like making an affirmation. I am that which is, I am aware, I am free of this pain. Yes, there is pain, there is ignorance, there is knowledge, but I am free of both the ignorance and the knowledge. Because even ignorance and knowledge is all mithya. It's all just another object. It's known to you. Anything that's known to you is all mithya, which is not you. You are that which is, you are the knower of the known. Anything that is known is not you, including the pain. Do you know about the pain? Yeah, you know about the pain. Therefore, the pain is not you. Do you know about concept of you? Yes, therefore you are not the concept. Do you know about this world? Yes, therefore you are not, that's what Jesus said. I am in this world, but I am not of this world. Yeah, you know that statement? So that means I am, simply translated, I know about this world, and this world is surely real, this body is surely real, but I am not, you know, I'm not this world, I'm not part of this world. I am, but I'm not, and we'll talk about it later, because there's actually no separation between Satya and Nitya. That will be another duality. We actually discussed last week with the pot and the clay. Yeah, was that helpful? Yeah. I didn't do that, but that was very helpful. I'm going to teach that separately, just to help you further understand. There's actually no separation between you, the knower, and the known. It's actually one, because there's only Brahman, there's only self, there's only me. So there, I can't say, well, there's that and there's this. There's another duality. And then we kind of slowly, little by little, understand there's actually no difference. But provisionally, I will constantly keep reminding you between the knower and the known. And eventually you'll probably say, Andre, you were wrong, because there's actually one and the same. I know that. But at the beginning, we have to first separate Satya from Mithya. Yeah? So little by little. Okay, so, and this is the same problem that Arjuna was having on the battlefield, is that he was thinking that he's about to be killed or he's about to kill other people. And then Krishna just says, Krishna being the symbol of the self, and Arjuna being a jiva who thinks he's the body and the mind, he thinks I'm about to kill or I'm about to be killed. So the problem was, think about this in life, is I'm about to die or I'm about to get another job or divorce or get a new partner. Krishna's like, well, you know, it doesn't matter, because you're thinking, you're believing that this world, this battlefield, that's the metaphor in Bhagavad Gita, that battlefield is just a metaphor for this world. You think this world is real. So Krishna just says to him, do your duty. Just do what you have to do, because if you don't do your duty, that is metaphorically, if you run away from the world, and if you don't realize your nature, then you're going to be haunted back, and Ishvara is going to put you right back where you're supposed to be. That is your duty. So we don't discard your duty. We don't discard your worldly attendance. You still got to do what you got to do in the world, because every human being, every body is assigned to do something. That's how it works here. This is the rule of Ishvara. Everyone is assigned to a certain task. That's why we have accountants, that's why we have lawyers, that's why we have dancers, musicians, criminals, rapists. Everyone is assigned a certain role, and there is no right or wrong between either of them. And then everyone is fulfilling their role so that they can move one step closer to the ultimate purpose, which I said at the beginning, self-realization, liberation. That moment when you know that, yes, there is this world, there is this change, apparent reality, there is this body, there is other bodies, but it's not me. I am the subject. Everything else is an object. And so the world still continues as normal.
If you're not doing your duty, unless you're pretty much aware of you should be doing X, in fact, you're going to sit down and have a tequila under a tree. Whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, even in that case, it's still better to try and do that, remembering that you're just the observer.
Remembering?
Yes.
Or yeah, reminding. Reminding, or taking a stand in awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because remembering, you know, you're trying to remember it's another object.
Okay. Yeah.
And you don't have to remember it because you already are it. It implies that it's separate from you.
I guess I'm thinking out loud in that if you're not doing your duty, by definition, you're into some mental, you're following some mental.
Yeah, you're probably trying to escape. Yeah,
and probably inevitably within that identification with the body, etc., will all naturally flow. But I presume if within all that,
yeah,
you are remembering.
You mean you mean remembering your identity?
Yes.
Okay.
probably by definition intermittently.
Yeah. Yeah, you
A,
are.
it's probably the way to go, and B, it's more likely to get you out of that and head you back towards duty, isn't it?
Yeah, so you're doing it simultaneously to your duty. So that means your duty is being done in your world. You're being, you're being a worker. You're being whatever you are. That's your duty. You're probably already doing your duty, but simultaneously to that, you're doing your nididhyasana. You're taking a stand in awareness, because this isn't a one-off. By the way, this isn't something that you come, go, oh, I am awareness, and then you walk back out. What happens is ignorance is so hardwired that it instantly sets back in. This is a reminder, a remembrance till the day you die. Yeah.
Well, that's why I said that, because in the back of my mind, I'm just a little bit hungry now.
Yeah.
My mind is set on a particular restaurant, cafe in Cronulla.
Right.
Reading the paper.
Okay.
And having at least one glass of red wine, more likely.
Okay, let's put that into practice now. So then, how are you able to know that? Because that memory, that pickle, that burger, that is in the coffee, whatever it is, that's an object.
Yes.
Because it's known to you. Now, how? So that's an experience. You're having an experience of remembrance. Yes, that's an experience.
Yes.
Okay. How far away are you from that experience?
Not very far at all. You mean the actual experience or the notion?
With that memory of that?
Experience with the memory of the
Yeah.
course.
How far are you, the one that's aware, from that experience?
Seems very close.
Yeah. In fact, there's no space, is there?
Yeah.
So then where's
There's a little bit of space now.
Yeah. So in other words, that you had an experience of a pickle,
Yep.
and then you are aware. You just said how far are you away from this experience? When I say you, I'm talking about that one who is aware.
Yep.
And you said there's not far at all. So you see, there's no separation between experience or object and subject. There's no separation between who you are and that which is presented to you. That means that's what we said, there's only Brahman, there's only consciousness. So that experience, if there's no space, that means it's actually one and the same. That means that's also consciousness. So this is knowledge that you are that. See, that is actually also Brahman. There's also, because you said there's no space between the pickle and the one that's aware of the pickle. So that means the pickle is also awareness, is also consciousness. So that's what we mean about there's no separation. So Krishna's having this, he's advising Arjuna certain teachings about who he actually is. And Arjuna is not actually buying any of it, because he is still caught up in this idea that, yeah, look, Krishna, it all sounds good, but I gotta kill people. It's so easy to say and quack about self-knowledge, but I gotta go out there to the real world and deal with people. And so Krishna tries further to teach him a little bit about reality, and then we're gonna get into that teaching now. That is gonna continue from from 2 weeks ago. And it says from here, I'm gonna go sideways. I'm going to go from here. Oops. What is unreal doesn't exist, and what is real never ceases to exist. So what is real never ceases to exist. This is what I meant. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so this is what I meant when I said what is real never ceases to exist. And what never ceases to exist? Existence. Like, here's a question. When did existence begin?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you were smart, a scientist comes in and says, well, yeah, it did begin. Like, okay. Did existence begin? Okay, now let's use the logic here. If you said yes, if you said no, there's no argument. But if you said yes, this is what I would say. how can you say existence began when that would imply that there had to be another existence that's able to report when this existence began? But since you're in this existence and you're not in that existence, then how can you say that existence began since you're not in contact with that existence? So once again, the question is, did existence begin? The answer is no, it never began. It has no beginning. It's another construct of the mind. If you said yes, then the logic would be, well, that's a self-contradictory statement if you said yes, because who is there to know when this existence began? That means there had to be another existence prior to this existence to say or to report that this existence began. But now, which existence are you in? Are you in this existence or are you in that existence? Huh? Because if you're in this existence, that means you're not in that existence. And since you're not in that existence, that means you can't say that this existence began, because it's only this existence that knows that this existence began. Okay, a little confusion. In other words, there's only one existence. There's no two existences here. So that
normally the word existence implies an object.
Yes, okay. Let's take that. So does this object remote control, does this belong to existence, or does existence belong to this? Does this remote control belong to existence, or does existence belong to this remote control?
Well, I think it belongs to existence, but I'm not.
Okay, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Well, yes, the answer is it belongs to existence. Okay, so considering this is an object, let's take up human body to make it more interesting. Does this body belong to existence, or does existence belong to this human body? So this human body belongs to existence. If you said that this human body, if you said that existence belongs to this human body, then the logic would be, okay, then which existence is real? Like, because since your existence, this is existence, then which one's real? Then we're in real trouble. That means this is also existence, this is also existence. Then we have no basis of getting out of Maya, because everything's existence. Then who do I put my trust in? Do I put my trust in this existence? Do I put my trust in the Vedic existence, in the Buddhist existence, in the Christian existence? Because now I'm in a real trouble here. I've got no basis of changelessness. I have no basis of that which is eternal. You see? So there's only one existence. And that's who you are. That which is eternal. That which is pervades everything. So that's where you put your security in. This is even a statement from Bhagavad Gita. Do not put your security in worldly objects, because worldly objects are constantly coming and going. Put your security, abide in me alone. That is, abide in that which is changeless, abide in existence, abide in that, or the one that is aware of this conversation taking place, which is what? You, awareness. That which is conscious. Abide, put all your security in that, because that is the only thing, even though it's not a thing, that's the only thing that is worthy of putting your security in, because that's the only thing that is going to be even after this body passes away. That's the only thing which is eternal. That's the only changeless principle. So why put your security in money, pleasure, sex, fame, power, money, if all of those things come and go? How long was Madonna famous for? Not for very long. Boyance, Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley. They all had their glory for a moment in time, for like this little. What's the point of putting your security in those kind of worldly things, knowing they're going to come and go? Let alone the last moment when this whole body passes away. What's the point of putting your security in any of this world, knowing it's just going to come and go? So therefore, put your security and all all your trust in that which is changeless. You, Satya, like Maya, not Maya, existence. Okay? So,
question, sorry, the implication, well, from the obvious objection, which I'm not suggesting, is why would you? It's because you don't know. If you don't know any better, getting the cars being Madonna, blah blah blah, sounds pretty good.
yeah.
If the alternative is to be a Madonna who doesn't get to be this rich, you know what I mean? Which is the common notion.
Yeah.
But I guess my real question is this is where meditation would seem to be.
Okay, objection, yep.
Well, that's not meditation. That was the objection.
Okay.
But the answer from here seems to be to get a clear picture of the alternative as opposed to a broader, rough picture.
Okay.
Just intellectual, which.
Okay. So, alternative to the intellectual.
No, well, sorry. I've got three things here. We've got the worldly stuff.
Yep.
Which if you know no better, you go for it, obviously. Everyone does. They know no better.
Yeah.
In between, there's the intellectual where you think, just maybe I'm the observing witness and that
Yes.
I shouldn't invest myself in
It is intellectual at the beginning, by the way. With practice, it stops being intellectual.
No, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but here's where meditation seems to be
And the purpose of meditation, very clearly, you cannot gain enlightenment through meditation. For example, one who doesn't know about their nature, they go into a cave and they just, go in silence. And they come out. What have they gained? They've just gained a moment of silence for however many years. They're still walked out ignorant. The only way to liberation is through knowledge. There's no other way. Action cannot bring liberation, to make that clear.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
But I'm thinking that maybe this isn't a question, but with meditation, if it's done properly,
Yeah.
and it has to have some knowledge behind it to be done properly, I would think, there one gets a taste of what it is to actually have a sense of being the awareness.
Okay,
And
so
suddenly, therefore, being Madonna is much less attractive when you have that real taste of.
Okay, so you cannot. The line from Bhagavad Gita says the self cannot be objectified. In other words, you cannot have an experience of yourself, because if you have an experience of yourself, what does that do? That implies there's one experiencing and that which is experienced. So that's another separation. Remember, so you're always experiencing. Okay, so who is one that's always experiencing? Who is always there that's experiencing from the moment you were born to the moment you're here walked in this room? Who was there experiencing all of these things?
The awareness.
You. Say I. See, you got to start saying I here, because this is level 5. We're going to get into this, where we we always look at awareness as something other than me. So you got to start using your language. This is called taking a stand in awareness. I am that. At the beginning, I know it's gonna feel a little fraud, because Maya, is gonna do everything by its default to make you think, no, this is not the case. I can't say this. Who am I? I'm small. I'm just a small guy. This is reserved for the big people over there. I had the same thing, but I totally get it. So you got to start claiming, I am that. That's what the statement like Nisargadatta. It's a beautiful. Did he say you are that or I am that? He said I am that, yeah. So you're going to start claiming that I am that. Now even the word that is a little dangerous because that implies it's over there. So more accurate is just to say I am. And then just to know that I am. Don't even say it, just know it. But at the beginning, yes, there's an affirmation. It's called taking a stand in awareness. I am ever free, ever present, limitless, actionless, non-dual awareness, like that. You just say that to whatever occurs. That's the practice. That's why I say this is not a one-off. This is not just in classroom. You take the knowledge you learned in the classroom and you apply it to your real life. I do this all the time at the airport, when I go to the field, when I see loud cars with musics and and women passing by and all these senses drawing. Wanting to steal the attention, I just turn back. I am awareness. I'm aware of this. This is all changing. It's not going to last. The Sufis say this too shall pass. You heard of that one before. And, you know, so there's no point being involved in it. I'm wasting my time. Because even though it's all going to pass, but the one thing that's going to remain when all of that has passed is me. Just like with all of your experiences, if you think about your life, if you inquire into your life right now, from the moment, the first day you remember, maybe you were 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, from the first day you remember of your earliest childhood, if you remember your entire life until this moment, what is one common denominator? The circumstances have changed. The people in your life have changed. What you've had, where you lived has changed. Your body certainly has changed, no doubt. Maybe you were a little more dull, maybe you were a little sharper. All of these things have changed, right? But what is one thing that hasn't changed?
The observer, as it were.
The one that knows about all these changes, which is you.
Yeah.
In other words, what hasn't changed?
I haven't.
There you go. I haven't changed. Abide in that I and put all your security in that I that knows about all of these changes from the earliest childhood moments to the present moment now. Abide in that I alone, and through time, slowly, the mind's going to naturally start to, put you back there automatically. So yes, it sounds like a mechanical process. There's no other way. It's got to be done because the world has conditioned us to believe that when they say I, it's just this body and this mind. So we have to reverse that. So we have to use the same mechanics by claiming that from now on, when you say I, it's no longer pointing to the body and the mind, because the body is not yours, the mind's not. You didn't create your body, did you? No, you just popped out of the womb. You didn't even control when to pop out. It just happened. Totally out of your control. You don't even get to select when you die. It's just going to happen one day. So you don't control anything here. So there's no point putting your security and your effort and all of your time into worldly things. Even though, there's a certain level of responsibility in the world, I get it. Like your job, your wife, whoever it is. But put most of your this is called nididhyasana, your practice, most of that which never changes, you. Because one day all of these things that you depend on and you put your joy in, whatever it is, the money, the wealth, the security, all of that's going to go away one day. But the one thing that's going to stay is you. So this is what liberation is. Knowing the difference between what's real and what is unreal. And so that's what it says here. It says what is unreal doesn't exist. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's just that it changes form. So we say it's good as non-existence. And what is real never ceases to exist. In other words, that which is real is you. This is why you got nothing to fear. There's no fear of death, because you know that it's only the body, it's only an experience of the body that dies. It's not you that dies. So this is a great relief. And it says, the red letters, moksha is knowing what is real and what isn't. That's what moksha is. It's not some experience, some grandiose super experience of orgasm or ever bliss experience. It's not that. It's just simply knowing the difference between what is real and what is unreal. What is real is me, awareness, consciousness, existence, and what is unreal is everything else, everything that is known to me. That is what is unreal. And moksha is constantly discriminating between the real, the subject, and the unreal, the object. Constantly, until it becomes so habitual that there is no need to put effort into it anymore. So yes, I understand it's going to be an effort at the beginning. There's no other way, because ignorance is so hardwired into us. We have to put effort into it. You see, you probably think that moksha is this, not you, but maybe there's some people who believe, in fact, this is a common spiritual belief, that moksha is like this one-off. Like a Buddha sits under a tree, and he has this enlightenment, and then he walks off, and then he starts teaching. It's not like that. It's just a realization of that which is real and what is unreal, that which is permanent, me, eternal, ever present, here, now, never changing, and that which is always changing. It's just that simple realization, and then constantly remembering or reminding yourself that's the case. That's how reality is. Satya, Mithya. Constantly discriminating between Satya and Mithya all the time. Knowing that ignorance is so hardwired in this world and the senses are always pulling you back into the world that you got no choice but to remind yourself all the time of this discrimination between what is real and what is unreal. That's what moksha is. It's a constant, effort. So later on, actually, I'll cancel this statement.
It's a practice of individual.
Hey?
Mind. Individual mind's practice. It's like...
Yes, the individual mind practices, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Now, but I was going to say that, yes, that's true. So there is a person that is doing this. Okay. Now, later on in the teaching, you'll hear me say, well, Andre, moksha is actually, there's nobody left there to do anything. There is no person left. That's what they say. The I collapses. The person, the jiva, is no longer identified. So there's nobody doing anything. Okay, so this is once again a provisional statement. Just know that. Because enlightenment actually is there's nobody there to do anything. It's just Ishvara, constantly a stream of Ishvara. There's no person that's making a decision. There's no mind that is, even though the mind's a faculty, okay, the mind's still there. This is the mind, it still remains, but there is no more jiva to be making independent choices because the jiva is no longer identified with the jiva. You are identified with the self. You see, there are two orders of different reality. So this one is incapable of making decisions. You see that? Only this one, in its illusion, thinks that it's making decisions. But enlightenment is reversing the relationship from this to that. So who is there to be making any decisions? You're just identified with the light that is shining on this world and everything is apparently happening. So just do know, I am slowly taking this bit, this is the way we teach. We have to sort of tell you, partial teaching and then remove that and then add on to that and then remove that until you realize that nobody's doing anything here. Nobody's making any decisions. There's no even illusion of free will is the case. And there's no doer. So the doer, enjoyer, collapses. That removes. There's nobody that's doing or enjoying. It's just a constant stream of isness. Okay? So we'll get into that later. But for now, there is a person, like you said, there is a mind that is constantly discriminating between the Satya and Mithya. Because there's no choice. Who else is going to do this for you? You're going to do it. And who is this you that's doing it? Well, that's the jiva that's doing it. And through the act of consistent doing it, you eventually come to a point where you no longer need to do it. It's just automatic. It's just like driving a car. When you first learned to drive a car, there was very much a personality that was very much involved, right? Remember that? Very much thinking, constant effort, doing, clutch. It's the same thing. There was very much a person that was doing it. And then now, you're going to get in the car, you're going to listen to some music, or you can probably put a passenger there, communicate with the passenger, look around, enjoy the scenery. It's almost like there's nobody doing anything. It's exactly the same thing. So that's what I mean at the beginning. It's like driving a car. There's going to be, there's clearly effort, discrimination, but at some time you're going to get into the automatic. It's just automatic. It's just instant. And you realize, well, I am that. There's no need to put effort because even the one that's putting effort, I also am that.
So like it sort of applies to yes, or somebody wants to be enlightened or something, and who wants to be enlightened.
Yeah.
So it's like that this person wants to be enlightened.
Yeah. well, that's a qualification, a desire for liberation. That's a primary qualification. And under the terms that you understand that there is no higher purpose of being here on earth than liberation.
But I don't know for this person. This is kind of.
So what's the question?
So yeah, I don't know what's the question, but it's sort of like maybe it's not so much a question, but so like if there's any sort of practice, you said like it's just like a person is making effort, and it's like a driving, and it becomes.
Yeah, it's an
I don't know,
effort.
that's a big self is doing ultimately.
Yeah, what's an effort?
Mm.
Yeah, it's an effort at the beginning. And what else? How else are you going to do? How else are you going to get to the ultimate truth unless you remind yourself constantly, ongoingly, that I am awareness. I am already free. I am free from what I am, from myself. I am free from myself. That means I am free from Andre character. I am free from Andre personality. And the problem in today's world is that we associate, the character as being me. But enlightenment is getting rid of that me, no longer identify with that me, because that me is not under your control. That me was never in your control. You think you're actually sitting here because you made a choice, but you have no choice. You don't even have a choice to breathe. You think you have a choice. That's where the mind comes in and tries to fill a story. But there is not a single moment when you have a choice. From a Jiva's point of view, you absolutely, it looks like you have a choice. Okay? So it looks like you have free will from a Jiva's point of view. I can put my pen here, I can put my pen here. It looks like I have free will to do that from a Jiva's point of view. But I didn't create this body, I didn't create these brain cells, this mind. I don't control anything. I don't even have a choice of which way my hand's going to move. So from an Ishvara point of view, that is the totality. Ishvara is God. That's the field, the intelligent field. There is no free will, because free will implies that I have control of the entire field, but I don't. I don't even know how this body is able to, function right now. I don't even know how to sustain this body. I have no idea. If this body breaks, what do? I go to a doctor. I don't go, oh, it's okay. I'm just gonna, meditate. Okay, all good. I don't know. I go to a doctor, so I don't know anything. So, and this is what surrender means. Surrender is just understanding that I don't know anything, and I'm just going to devote myself to a teaching that has already figured it out, and I'm just going to trust that teaching because I got no choice. Just like I have no choice but to go to a doctor because a doctor knows. So this is like a doctor for, bringing you back to who you always were, who you already are right now.
Just I find the fabulous analogy of effort is that, the story of the monkey who was struck because he's got his hand in the soil, isn't it? That's right. When he's got his hand around the sweets, he can't get his.
Yeah.
That's right. He can't get his fist out of the jar because he's holding onto the lollies.
Oh, really? I haven't heard this one.
I think I've heard you say. It's a variation on the thing. That's apparently how they actually do catch monkeys in India. They put some lollies in a jar.
Right.
The monkey can get his hand into the jar, but he grabs hold of the lollies, whatever it is, and he can't get his hand out.
Oh,
normally let go of the lollies because he's instinctively trained to work out that.
Oh, okay.
And if that's done long enough, the hand atrophies.
Yeah.
So the effort, the deliberation there is to be able to let go, which is doing nothing in a sense.
Yeah.
It does take effort because you've atrophied.
Yeah. In fact, when it's just trying to pull its hand out, that's just an automatic response of the body. It's not even. It's same with a human being. It's just an automatic response. It's just having a little prick here. I have no choice but to move.
Yeah.
I have no choice. It's the same thing here. I have no choice. It's actually the same. I have no choice but to put this here and no choice but to put this here. So it's all, in other words, the point is it's all run by Ishvara, the great intelligence. In fact, nobody controls when the sun rises, when the sun sets, when the wind blows, how high the tides are. Nobody does this. Like, who is doing all of this? Who is causing all of these bees to make honey and look 2 kilometers away and then come back and do a little wiggle dance and then let the other bees know that there's honey over there? And then who causes the intelligence of the bee to know exactly the same location where the flowers to pollinate are? Who knows, the intelligence of the sun and the moon being exactly the same radius when there's an eclipse? Did you ever notice that? They're actually exactly the same radius, even though they're different distance from the Earth. They actually cover each other, even though the moon is smaller. They cover exactly each other. Who causes these little details to be so accurate and create the perfect temperatures and life forms on Earth to be sustainable for growth? So it's the great intelligence. It's actually very synonymous with your dreams. Think about your dreams for a moment. I'm going to use this analogy as a teaching tool. Okay, so when you go to dream tonight, what are 2 components of the dream? Well, they are this. There is the material of the dream, and there is intelligence in the dream. Yeah? So there is the actual stuff in the dreams. There is a floor, there is a sun. So that's the material, like elements, and there is intelligence in the dream. Is there not? That's how you're able to have characters talking in a dream. And what happens is you, the dreamer, are sitting peacefully in your bed, completely, still, and there is this dream happening. And this dream consists of the material and the intellect. And they form the dream. In other words, they form a dream world. Agree so far?
So intellect is what a dream.
Oh, and the intellect is like who is able to make all these things function in the dream? How are the characters able to interact, and how is one thing able to go over there and this person say, who is doing this? Who is creating this order, this organization? That's intellect. Okay, so there's material and there's intellect. And then what happens? There's characters in the dream, correct? Okay, just think about your own dream now. There's characters in the dream. Now, those characters are made of what? Material. Okay, the actual material, that's how you're able to see them. And there is intelligence. In other words, there's a character, a sensible character, or maybe it's a Donald Duck or whatever it is. Maybe it's a crazy, but still it's a character. There's a shape to it, like who creates this dream to be exactly in these shapes and these coordinates and these sizes? Well, that's the intelligence, yes? It's not just one big block of material. Like this material is split into characters. So there's material and there's the characters. And what happens with those characters in your dream? They all take on different personalities, right? Yeah, you have one person, another person. Think about your own dream. They all have different personalities. Now, are you on the same page so far? Okay, now, what is a common denominator for each of those personalities in the dream? They all think that's who they are. Yeah, agree? And some of them kill other characters. They talk to it as if they're separate. Yeah? On the same page? So every character is playing, remember, you're dreaming all this. Every character is playing its own unique life. And none of them are aware that they all stand back to the one same dreamer, which is you. You see that? Same thing here. So it's another dream. You see, it's the one eye sitting in bed, if you want to look at it as a metaphor. It's the one eye that is dreaming this dream character, this dream character, this dream character. And we all dream characters think, oh, I'm separate from you, so I'm going to have my share. But we don't realize that we all stand back to the one same I self. Okay? It's the same microcosm, macrocosm analogy. Okay, so the essence of both. So here we define what is real and what is unreal. And the essence of both is known by the wise. The wise is an enlightened person. That's what the enlightened person knows. So now you know what liberated one knows. They know the difference between Satya and Mithya. No one can destroy that which pervades everything. This means that, can you destroy this space, for example? Can I do anything to insult the space in this room? No. I can swear, I can curse this space in this room. It doesn't care. I walk out, somebody else walks in, it makes a different use out of this room. So existence doesn't care. It's neutral. In other words, it pervades everything all the time. It's unaffected. No matter what happens in this room, this space in this room is never affected. So therefore we say existence is like space. In other words, no experience ever touches you. Not even death of this body. Nothing touches you ever. There's things that occur in you, just like there is now an experience of these however many bodies are occurring in this room. There's an experience of this, but it doesn't touch the space. Similarly, no matter what experience you have, painful, happy, peaceful, liberated, unliberated, ignorant, knowledgeable, it doesn't touch you because it is all known to you. Okay, so liberation is identifying with the one that knows about these experiences and not the experience itself. An ignorant person thinks, you probably heard this on the telephone, oh, I'm going through such a hard time. Oh, they always identify with their emotions, their experiences. That's what you call being caught in samsara, ignorance. A wise person still may undergo through these changes, but he just knows these changes are occurring to the jiva, not to me. It's occurring to the body, not to me. Because I am that which is the knower of the experience. I'm not the experience nor the body itself. Okay, that's what the wise person knows. The bodies that appear in the self, which is not subject to objectification. So in other words, the self is not subject to you cannot objectify the self. This is the common problem in yoga, for example, is that we try to superimpose these anthropomorphic qualities onto God, and we say, he is the decision maker. No, it's not like that. Okay, so as soon as you objectify, warning sign. It is not it. Go back to the one that is aware of this objectification process going on and stay in that one. Always come back to yourself, the one that knows about these processes, experiences of happening, of this and that, of yoga, of meditation. Like, who's the one that is aware that there's a meditator meditating on something? Who's aware of that? You are. Stay in that one instead of giving away your experience to something else, because you already are what you're looking for. This is one of the errors in meditation, is that a meditator will sit down and they will meditate hoping to merge with something, some cosmic experience, when they don't even realize that the one that is meditating is the one that's already looked for. In other words, the seeker, the meditator, is the sought. So you don't need to meditate. You don't need to look for anything because you already are that. Remember the example of the clay and the pot? Wherever there is a pot, whatever pot it is, that's exactly where there is what? The clay. That means if you go to a Himalayan mountains, it's a different type of pot, different type of creation out of clay. That's exactly where the clay is. If you go to Sydney in some random house, some random suburb, it's still made out of clay, clay being a metaphor for the self. It's still where the clay is. In other words, you already always are it. You're never separate from it because there is only the clay. It's the clay world in different pots. See, this is one version of a pot, another version of a pot, even space is a pot. This floor is a different version of a pot, but it's all made out of what? Clay. So no matter where you go, what you read, what you experience, what you feel, what you don't feel, it is all of the same clay. That's what it means. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to meet anyone. I don't need to learn anything. Or maybe you need to learn something to get to this understanding. But there's no way to go, no place to be, and nobody to meet. That's what that phrase means, is that you already are what you're seeking for. Therefore, meditator doesn't need to go meditate on something else because he already is that. That's the problem with meditation. And the only reason we actually have meditation is just to calm the mind. That's the only reason meditation exists, just to bring sattva, bring peace to the mind. But for liberation, no. That's a big actual misconception, false notion in the spiritual world that meditation is the tool to realize the self. Because they probably have Buddha's story in their minds and they go, well, Buddha sat under a tree, meditated for the next morning, and then he suddenly realized the self. No, what happened was he just calmed the mind down without any distractions and then realized the ultimate nature, which is I am that which is unchanging and everything else is changing, so I'm just going to abide in what is unchanging. That's it. So meditation has nothing to do with liberation, even though it's a catalyst or can be a helpful tool just to calm the mind down so that this knowledge can actually make sense. Because this knowledge ain't going to make sense if your mind's all over the place, is it? So now we know the purpose of meditation. Okay, so the bodies that appear in the self, so the self is not subject to objectification, begin and end anyway. So this is what I've been saying. Your body began, it's gonna end. So don't bother with the body as much as you probably, most of us probably are, because it's gonna end anyway. So why put effort into something that is gonna go old, is gonna grow weak, is gonna grow ugly, even though it's beautiful, we just label it as ugly. Why put all the effort in all this exercise? Are you kidding me? All these big muscles and beautiful makeup. This total effort is something that's going to pass away anyway. And actually creates a big problem because later on, for example, a woman, they're 70s and now they realize, oh, my body's not as beautiful as it used to be. So now their low self-esteem ensues and they're even more not thinking about self-knowledge because they're preoccupied with how good they looked years ago. So there's no winning here in this world. That's not a qualification for Vedanta, by the way. It's a zero-sum game. You cannot win. Even if you're a hot rock star like Michael Jackson, well, there's a price to pay. Then you have no peace. How are you going to realize the self when everyone just wants your attention? You see? So there's no winning here. So the only thing you can do is just rest in the self, abide in the self, gain self-knowledge, and stay in that. And let the world pass, because it's just a dream. Just like the dream you had last night or you will today. It's just a dream. That should be like releasing or relieving, not taking it so seriously. So liberation is just like being in a dream, but knowing you're having a lucid dream. You had that before? I had lucid dreams when I was little. I was totally aware of the dream. That's when you identify with awareness very strongly, and then you're able to know, oh, this is a dream, because you're so aware that even in the dream you're still got consciousness, of yourself. That's what lucid dream is. Well,
I only had one moment of lucidity within a dream, and immediately the dream will overtook it. Something really weird happened in the dream, and it's like, hold on, this is all natural. In the dream, it's again.
I think I had a dream once, and I was dreaming in the dream.
Right.
I woke up, right? I was in the bed, but I realized I was still in my dream bed. So I had to wake up again to wake up in this. By the way, we're going to get through the 3 states, Mandukya Upanishad. I'm going to do that through the dreamer, deep sleeper, and the waker. And when we go through these 3 states, you realize you're none of those. And then you go, what else is there? I can't be the waker, I can't be the dreamer, and I can't be the deep sleeper because I'm the one that's aware of all the three states. Are you aware now of this? Are you aware of the dream? Definitely. Are you, now here's a trick question. Are you aware of your deep sleep? Okay, we're going to get into, yes you are. You do have an experience of your deep sleep as blissful. If it weren't blissful, you wouldn't be making your sheets in your bed and making your bed all nice, because you know you're going to have quite a nice sleep, you see? So we do have an experience of deep sleep, even though you think you don't. Otherwise, why would you prepare your bed? You know, you're not going to your bed to dream. You go to your bed because you know you're going to have a deep sleep. And deep sleep is called 1/3 enlightened because it's just blissful. Yeah, we're going to get into that. So, death is certain for that which is born, and birth is inevitable for that which is dead. In other words, the unmanifest turns into a manifest. Your body was once, long ago, however many years, unmanifest, and then it turned into the manifest. And then now, because it's manifest, it's going to go back to the unmanifest in 50, 60, 70, however many years. And this is just an ongoing cycle. This is how it is in Maya. And so there's nothing to fear, because this body is just another body. You probably had millions of bodies before. And what's the big deal? It's just another body.
And your that doesn't actually say you're going to be manifest always as a body, it just says you'll become manifest again. That second, at the end of that sentence. Okay, so just as I'll get to that. Just as a person throws away old clothes and puts on new ones, the self dwelling within the body discards old bodies, in other words, the body will die, and enters new ones, unless you're liberated, okay? So then we have to stop, pause here, and see the purpose of this, of liberation, is to end the cycle of birth and rebirth. Because it's the vasanas, it's your habits or identification with your body that causes another rebirth into the physical body. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more because it's important to understand. Liberation causes, because the only reason you're on earth is to work out your karma, your unfinished business. Now, if you work out your karma and there's nothing more to do, then what's the point of coming back to earth? So, and the only way you can work out your karma is through physical means. You can't work out your karma as a spirit, as a gaseous substance. You need to be physical to work out your karma, to say sorry to someone. You can't have a ghost say sorry, or whatever you want to call it. So that's why the body reincarnates back into the physical form. There's no other way to work out unfinished business than through this physical body. Right? That's the only way why we reincarnate physically. And when your karma is finished, and by the way, liberation causes any further karma to stop, all that happens is that after liberation, we have what's called prarabdha karma. That is karma that is yet to fructify, will fructify in this life. So if, for example, I robbed the bank and then I got liberated, I'm still going to get found by the police and I'm still going to go to jail, whether I'm liberated or not. That's called prarabdha karma. In other words, the unfinished business will still need to get finished. That's why you can even have a liberated person going through, quite a little dramatic circumstances. And you're like, what's the problem? I've done the best I could. I'm liberated. I'm supposed to, be free of this world. No, it doesn't work like that. You still got to say sorry to your wife, to finish your, make your customers happy, do what you need to do. That's called leftover karma. So that's still gonna end. That's still gonna finish till the last day. But new karma is no longer being generated. It's only new karma for a jiva. But when you re-identify with the self, new karma can't get created. You know why? Because I know that I am not doing it. It's all Ishvara. It's not me. You see? It's all Ishvara. It's all Ishvara. This is where karma is. So if I think I'm a jiva, then
hey, I fully believe I'm part of this field of karma. Karma means action. Then of course there's going to be a rebirth, because that's the limitation that I understand myself to be. So therefore I will simply continue my idea of myself, and therefore I will, there will be another rebirth. But when there's liberation, means that I'm no longer the jiva, I am awareness, self-existence, and there's no doubt about it. So therefore then how can a rebirth happen? There's no way. It's illogical, impossible. So that's why we have the end of cycle of birth and rebirth, as the Buddhists say.
So it's not a practical problem, but isn't the notion that the avatars, Jesus and so on, they were born, to use Rikkamishwar, because the world was going downhill fast, or something they need to give it.
Yeah, I think what happens is every once in a while someone is just completely. Well, I mean, even Jesus had a whole bunch of rebirths, and then and then maybe that was his last birth. But it's not like Ishwar creates out of nothing. There's always a quote, a past line of characters, of raw jivas that has led to that avatar. So avatar is not someone, or maybe it is, actually not quite sure. But there's always a content, because it's a non-dual reality. There is no suddenly it appears out of nowhere. It's mixed with something else. In other words, it's related to something else in the relative world. It's not actually related, because that implies duality again, but it is like a chain, you could say. Okay, so, and then all beings are unmanifest before birth. Yeah, beings meaning jivas, manifest while living. Yeah, there's a body here, that means manifest. And return to an unmanifest condition after death. In other words, the body returns back to the minerals of earth. It changes into something else, only to become manifest again. So get up and fight, only to become manifest again. That is implying that one has not realized their nature. So the self was never born, nor does it die. That's what we've been talking about for the last 1 hour. It is unlike objects which, having been, in other words, they were at one time there, which having been cease to exist at some time. Tell me one thing or one object or one experience that is still consistent today. There's not a single experience you can find that is still at the exact same intensity, at the exact same form, at the exact same essence as it once was. It changed. It's different. So everything changes, and the one thing that never changes is you, the one that's able to say there was this experience and this experience and this experience and this experience. In other words, you were never contaminated by any of these experiences. It is eternal and ever new. That's you, the real you. It is unaffected when the body dies. If you know the self as timeless and not subject to decay, how can you think you can kill or be killed? In other words, if you know yourself to be, this is when you're identifying now with the self, existence, which is timeless, eternal, it's ever new, it's ever fresh. If you identify with that, how can you believe, possibly, where's the logic, if you know yourself to be existence, that you can die, that you can be injured, that you can be hurt, that you can be smart or intelligent or even enlightened? Where's the logic? There's no logic there. Even saying the word I am enlightened, that's just another concept. Like, who is there? Like, is awareness enlightened? No, we're talking about existence. Existence doesn't care whether it gets defined enlightened or not. It's just eternal. It's only a jiva with his ignorance that says, I'm enlightened. So, how can that which is common for everyone be called or taken ownership and called enlightened? There's no logic there. So existence is just existence. You can't call existence enlightened. That's why you can't say I'm enlightened. Who is this I that's enlightened? Well, only a jiva is enlightened. In other words, an ego. So it's a red warning sign when you hear someone say I'm enlightened. It's not that they're, maybe that's true, but they're still ignorant about their real nature, because there's still an identification with a jiva. In other words, you know it's a giveaway, they're still identified with the body and the mind at somewhat level if they say I am enlightened or I am self-realized. Or you've got to ask, like you ask, what do you mean by that? Ask them instead of assuming. Weapons cannot kill it. In other words, weapons cannot kill you, the real you. That can kill your body, of course, but not you. Fire can't burn it, water can't wet it, and the wind is unable to dry it. It is changeless and all-pervading. That's what we've been talking about. You are changeless. You are everywhere, all the time, ever present, ever new, ever fresh, non-dual, limitless, non-dual love, awareness, consciousness, bliss, existence. The eyes cannot see it, and it is not an object of thought. Okay, why is this the case? Because if it becomes a thought, it's another object. It's like you had a pickle or a sandwich, and it was presented to you, and you knew about it. So there was a knower and there was a known, and the known is, as I said at the beginning, whatever is known is not you. You're always the knower, that which is aware of whatever is being presented to you, including this experience of sitting in this room. Okay? You're the one that knows about this. That's it. That's what the self is. The self-awareness is that one, that's conscious now, here, right now. So just abiding and taking a stand in that over and over and over and over and over again until you identify with only that, as that, not as something separate from you, but as you. Yeah? Knowing this, you should not grieve for these people. Some see the self as a wonder, others speak of it as a wonder. Even after hearing about it, most don't understand it at all. You know, even family members or someone close, a wise one doesn't grieve. Because do you grieve when some character in your dream dies? Probably never happened, has it? You just go, oh, and then something else happens. And then something else happens. It's the same thing here. It's just a dream. Any concept of father, mother, brother, sister, Andre, whoever you are, it's just a concept that the jiva is holding and one's identified with that concept. It's a construct. It has no relevance to anything. It's totally subjective. And a wise one is not identified with the jiva, therefore, who are you grieving for if that's not even your mom, your dad? It's all Ishvara's. Even your body's not yours. So who are you grieving for? It just doesn't make sense.
The other day I was grieving over the something I said that was really stupid to someone in hierarchy. And immediately I thought, this is silly, I shouldn't drop it. But it kept on going back to it.
Yeah.
I got some relief. I thought, well, if this is worth grieving about, should I grieve for the rest of my life over this one sentence?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the intellect, at least, dealing with it that way. That if you're not going to grieve every single hour of your life for the rest of your life over this, then it doesn't make any sense to grieve for 1 second.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's one of those things where what applies to small things applies to bigger things too.
Some see the self as a wonder. Well, by now, in these whatever hours, I don't think you see the self as a wonder as much as at the start. I think the self should be a little more clearer now. Who you are, right? It's a little more clearer now. Okay. But here it says, some see the self as a wonder. Why? Because they were not educated. If you're not told about this, you're just not going to know. It's just how it is. You know, actually we had, if you look at the yugas, you know, in the Vedic scriptures, we had the Satya Yuga. And the Satya Yuga it's a metaphor. And it's the time where we had close communities together, and we had Brahmins. And the children of the families were sent to the Gurukulams of these Brahmins, who were the sustainers and the preservers of truth, of Satya Mithya. Okay? And they taught the children of this knowledge that we're speaking of now. And so we had a very, a peaceful society that knew their nature. They were discriminating between Satya and Mithya. So there was peace and there was contentment in the communities because everyone was educated this knowledge. So this was a Satya Yuga. And then what happened after, we had 2 yugas in between, but at the end we're now in Kali Yuga. So the story goes is that as agriculture came by, people started to plant seeds and they started to proceed with trading from one community to the other. And so now they were able to distance themselves away and form cities. That's what the agriculture provided. They provided a space to, to go farther away from house, because now you could sustain yourself, grow your own crops, your own food. So what happens is the children were no longer going to these Gurukulams. So the knowledge started to get lost through the generations, because now the children, instead of being sent to these schools to learn this knowledge, they were being sent to conduct trading between other parties and make money to sustain themselves. So slowly through generations, this knowledge was being lost. So now we have the world in the current state as you know it. And what is common today? Cities. And what is very prevalent today? Well, success. Like success, materialism, how to live a good life. Does that involve going and learning this?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. So therefore we have today a common world in the Rajas, Rajas and Tamas, ignorance. And the ignorance is the default, it's a prevalent state today of the people. So the reason I'm saying this is that there's nothing strange or mystical or unique about enlightenment. It's just simply recognizing who you already are right now, who you always were, existence. And the world still goes on as always. You still do your duties, you still, work for a boss. You may not like the boss. Everything's normal, nothing changes. You just know who you are. And because of that, you're a lot more peaceful. You don't take this dream to be serious anymore, because it's like a lucid dream. It's like, yeah, I know, there's pain in this body, kind of sucks, but it's not me. So everything continues as normal. You're just a lot more relaxed, and you're not so, you don't take things seriously anymore. So, and now, we don't have this very, very popular Vedanta, of course. And by the way, we never advertise Vedanta because people find this however they find it. So, but still, you can see the fewness of people wherever you go to. My teacher, James Schwartz, or anywhere else in the Vedanta circle, very few people come. Because why? Because experience dominates this world. Experience of A, experience of B, experience of C, like Kundalini, Vipassana, meditation, Tantra, martial arts. It's all experience dominated. If you look at your bulletin boards in a classified section of the spiritual community, I just looked one in Melbourne, it's all just one experience after another. Orgasm, sexual sacred union, this, that. It's just total experience driven. So this experience is prevalent because even the one that's conducting the seminar doesn't know who they are. They still mistaken themselves for the body and the mind. That's what experience means. If you're experience junkie, as is the world on a large basis, it means the world is mistaking themselves as the body and the mind. And what is enlightenment? Freedom from the enjoyer. You see you see the total opposite? So that's why Vedanta is so unpopular, because everyone's chasing experience. And if I tell them, what you're really looking for is freedom from the experiencer who's constantly undergoing ups and downs. No one's going to come. But we have to say that because that's the truth. So that's why liberation is so rare today, because it's so much more enticing to go to some experience, convention or seminar and get a good, like, get your money's worth, like, I had a good experience, than to go to a place and say, experience is the very factor that's keeping you suffering and ignorant and causing this rebirth, on and on and on and on and on.
Let's clarify there, because I can see. So what's the difference between, call it the final experience and awareness? You're saying that what the very word experience implies.
Okay.
Something. You probably said that.
Okay, listen to this. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Was that an experience of a clap? Yes or no? Did you experience that?
Yes. The sound.
Okay. So that was an experience. How do you know that you experienced that?
Because something was watching the experience.
And that someone is you. That's the difference between experience and awareness. Okay, and then other commentaries, so even after hearing about it, most don't understand it at all. What is this it that's being referred to? Most don't understand it at all. This it is the self. And why? Most don't understand it because our means of knowledge is inadequate. Now, this is a different teaching. We're now moving into a little more technical terms. The only two means of knowledge that you can ever use, that we have as a whole, is perception and inference. Perception is when you see directly. You're perceiving this body, this mouth talking. Now, here's what inference is. If you were outside the door and the door was closed and there was a conversation happening here, you could what? You could infer that there are people in here because there's a conversation, even though perception doesn't work because the door's closed. So you don't see directly the people in the room, but you can infer there must be people based on some effects that I'm experiencing, which is the sound and two voices and so on. So that's what inference is. And inference and perception are the only two means that we can discover and know information. All science, by the way, to discern Big Bangs and to supernovas, all of that is based on inference, because nobody's ever seen the creation of a black hole. They can only see a black spot, that's perception, but they cannot see the billions of years for that creation of that black spot. So that's where they use inference by the effects of the stars around, and they can see the tail of some stars through the trajectory, and they can infer, because they're all moving towards the black hole through that little black spot, there must be a strong gravitational pull, and therefore that's inference. That's called inference. Okay, so inference is using the effects to infer that certain conditions must be true. Now, what's the point of this teaching? The point is, you cannot use perception and inference to know about self, because perception and inference are stop mirroring. Okay, perception and inference are all mithya. Now remember, mithya and satya, they're two different orders of reality. So using perception or inference to discover the self doesn't work. because self is more subtle. It's the subtlest of the subtlest, the self. So perception inference cannot be used to know about the self. So what's the point of saying this? The point is this: if I close my eyes and try to meditate to know about the self, you see the error? I'm using my perception. But now we said, the scripture says, you cannot know the self through perception or inference. And that's why we have such trouble knowing about the self, because we're using our minds to try to identify that which is beyond the mind. You see, the mind's all mithya. You are satya. Mithya cannot know satya, only satya can know mithya. You see? Only the subject can know the object cannot know the subject. You see? Only the knower can know the known, the knower being you. Only the knower can know the known, but the known cannot know the knower. And using perception and inference is in the realm of the known and not the knower. So therefore, how do we know about the self? That's why it is impossible to do this on your own. It's nearly impossible. We had very few cases like Ramana Maharshi who had a unique experience. We need the scripture. And that's how Vedanta helps us to reconnect with that which is you cannot get through meditation, through any action, through any means of knowledge, which is only provided by perception and inference. Only the scripture can help us. And that's why we have the scripture. So next week or a fortnight from now, we will probably skip and we will learn about Maya, creation. Because there's a line in, for example, Viveka Chudamani, I think it's verse 96 or something. It says this: liberation is not knowing what is self. Liberation is knowing what is not self. Yeah? See, it's very easy for you to say, I'm aware, is it not? We can all say that. Oh, I'm conscious, what's the big deal? But is that enough? No. If that was enough, all the Neo-Advaitists, they would settle the business, because they're just saying your consciousness, your everything else you can just discard. You can't discard everything else. You need to know what everything else is. So next time we meet, we will discuss about Ishvara, which is God. You need to know what Ishvara is so that you can know what to discern. If you don't know Ishvara, then you get tricked, you get fooled, and you start to discriminate Ishvara, that is mithya, from mithya. So we need to be very clear what is satya and what is mithya. And that's how you're able to clearly discriminate between the two. So that's very important. That's why Vedanta works, because we teach God. There's no other, find me one system that teaches God. Usually they'll ignore God. They will say, oh, it's just, God is all this. You're not all this. You're that which is aware of all this. So just stay in that. That's not enough. If it was enough, we wouldn't need the scripture. So we need to know what satya is and what mithya is. Yeah? So that's what we're going to do next time. Cool. Any questions?
What you must have mentioned, but what was the text?
Viveka Chudamani, or this one?
Yeah, you just showed.
This is from the Bhagavad Gita. Shankara made commentaries of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita comes from Mahabharata, which is written by Vyasa a couple of thousand years ago, and the Bhagavad Gita is a story between two characters, Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is the seeker, Krishna is the self, and Arjuna is trying to find the truth and Krishna is helping him. And now Shankara made commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, and then Swami Dayananda made commentaries on Shankara's commentaries to make it more easily understandable for the modern world. And then my teacher, James Schwartz, made commentaries on Dayananda's commentaries to make it for the Westernized, because Dayananda is from Rishikesh. He is Indian tradition. So James Schwartz is a Westerner, and he makes this very easily understandable for the Westerners. And now I'm just reading my teacher's my teacher's Bhagavad Gita commentaries. Bhagavad Gita is actually a Dharma Shastra and a Moksha Shastra. Dharma Shastra means how to live on earth, and Moksha Shastra is liberation. So I'm taking the Bhagavad Gita and I'm extracting the most essential components of Dharma and Moksha. There's a lot of more other things in Bhagavad Gita. You just don't want to go through all of that. So I'm just taking the essence that is absolutely applicable to life and absolutely just focuses on liberation and also how to live Dharma. And the text, we know the text works because it's produced consistent liberation for thousands of years, but also we've seen people's lives change. For example, my teacher James Schwartz has been teaching us for 50 years, and he's taught a lot of people, and he's seen a lot of people's lives change by this scripture. And it works. It works consistently, predictably, by following the program. Yeah, and it's non-dual texts. There's many versions of Bhagavad Gita, and it depends on who's the one that's translated from Sanskrit. Now, if the one that's translated from Sanskrit does not understand Satya-Mithya relationship, as is the case 90% of the time or more, then they will interpret Bhagavad Gita as a Dharma Shastra. That is how to live, and that would be in the form of virtuous, moral, and pray to Krishna as if it's something separate from you. And then one fine day you will get to enter the Krishna realm called heaven, and you will get to play with Krishna. See the duality there? This Bhagavad Gita, this translation knows that Krishna is who you already are. So we interpret it as simply as how to live and about who you already are, and how to realize that. So there's no separation between the two. So and I'm very happy that I specifically found this version, because it lets me know that I'm not teaching separation. I'm not telling you that you need to go to some heaven or sport with Krishna or whatever it is, which is just dualistic thinking. Yeah. So we just say who you are, what you're looking for, you already are. This is just about realizing that and being completely convinced and completely accepting that, because it's the truth. It's only ignorance that makes you doubtful of that. So we need to remove ignorance, and that's why we're here, to remove that ignorance. And then one fine day, when you're totally convinced, as will be the case if you persist with this, you'll just have no reason to come here, because that's the end of your teaching. Then you'll just do your nididhyasana, taking a stand in awareness, constantly discriminating satya from mithya, until things become so clear that the world just becomes transparent. You'll just see ignorance, Actually, you're not going to see ignorance. I just say ignorance from a standpoint of understanding, but you just see everything as yourself, but you see in terms of others how ignorance prevails everywhere. It's just beautiful ignorance everywhere. Everywhere is just ignorance. It's just beautiful. It's dualistic, beautiful, gorgeous, juicy, exciting ignorance everywhere. And there's no greater joy than standing, well, not standing, you're always here, knowing that you are here and nothing affects you. No amount of ignorance can touch you. You're untouchable. You're invincible. You are that which is pervasive, pervades all that is. That is the greatest joy there is. That's the benefit of liberation. And that joy just keeps going more and more and more, increasing, because your own ignorance starts to fall away. Yeah. So, and there's no worldly pleasure that comes even close to that knowledge, to that direct experience. I say direct because it's not something separate from you. It is you. That you are eternal, forever, untouchable. No matter what happens in the world, it doesn't touch me, ever. So I get to not only enjoy the world, but I also know that no amount of whether it's enjoyment or suffering, it doesn't touch me ever. That's the joy. That's the ananda, if you want to call it that, of Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss. Cool. We'll see you next time. Unless you got any more questions. Okay, I'm going to close.
Just on my way out, not a question. What is, in case it's of any interest to you, in Byron Bay, there's an Adyashanti group in Nindi. You mentioned that there's been many people interested in Vedanta anywhere in the world, but limited.
Yeah.
Less so in a country town. And there's also this.
Adyashanti. Oh yeah,
Adyashanti,
I know him. Yeah.
I don't know if you think of him as a
Neo-Advaita, yeah.
So you do.
Neo-Advaitist. I used to be into his material. Yeah.
And do you like you think he's Neo-Advaita?
No, none of it helped me. It was just all. It's just interesting, but there's no teaching system there. It's not sequential. You need to be taught sequentially. It's like a math professor who just walks into a five grades classroom and starts to impress them with what the maths professor knows, and all the kids are like, "Oh wow, this guy's really smart, and he's competent." And he really, he creates a good experience. He shows them how maths is all fun, how he can do calculations, and everyone's impressed. But when they all walk out, have they learned anything? No, they just had a really good experience. But nobody took anything that's tangible, graspable. So Vedanta is very aware of this, so we teach it in a very sequential manner. So you're actually learning as if you're in grade 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then we do the addition before we do subtraction, before we do multiplication, before we do division. There's no skipping here. It has to be, all done little by little.
And I'll also mention there's the School of Practical Philosophy, which seemed to be the principal Advaita Vedanta teachers in Australia anyway.
Really?
And there's a small group in Byron Bay or near Byron Bay, but there's one in Sydney where they're actually studying the Gita in Sanskrit, which might have some interest to you. So.
Yeah, but we don't know though what lineage they're from, or
Sorry, what?
We don't know what lineage they're from, or
I will lie to you, but I'm sort of mentioning anyway.
practical philosophy.
I've got a website if you're interested. And the fact that they
No,
teach Sanskrit.
I'm moving to Melbourne actually.
Oh, they're down there too. In fact, they're bigger down there.
Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukhabhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi.